Texas Hoops finish the season strong as they shoot into postseason tournament contention. How will the NCAA tournaments look in terms of bracketology? Plus, the World Baseball Classic makes its long-awaited return with its most talent ever. All this and more coming up on College Press Box. Good evening and welcome to College Press Box. I'm your host, Joseph Duffey, and we've got a great show for you this evening. This past Saturday, Texas men's basketball returned to the Moody Center for its final regular season game of the season. The Longhorns, losers of their past two games, which happened to be on the road against ranked opponents, desperately looked for a strong win to propel them towards the Big 12 tournament. Their opponent, the Big 12 regular season champion Kansas Jayhawks, who had already defeated Texas in Lawrence just a month ago. Our very own Justin Goosman was at the raucous Moody Center for what transpired.
Well, folks, it was the Texas Longhorns taking on the Kansas Jayhawks in the Moody Center this weekend. It was also senior day for Texas, so you know they wanted to get it done for the older guys on the roster. Early on, it was Marcus Carr, the senior, getting it to go from the mid-range and the foul. But for the most part, Texas had this game going all day long. Getting stops on the defensive end, pushing in the break, and getting easy scores. That was the recipe for success for Texas. But really, offensively, the answer was Tyrese Hunter. He's found his groove the last few games and really kept it going offensively, hitting multiple threes in the first half and finding his stroke. But the real story of the night was Sir'Jabari Rice. He's been named the National Sixth Man of the Year and was able to find his stride offensively and defensively. As you can see right here, Sir'Jabari Rice swatting DeJuan Harris into the stands. He had it going all night long, bringing the energy offensively and defensively. But it wasn't just that senior. Dylan Dessou, Christian Bishop getting in on the action. Everybody for Texas was ready to go. But Sir'Jabari Rice, he was the guy all day long. And when asked about Sir'Jabari Rice's impact, Tyrese Hunter had this to say about Sir'Jabari.
Shot fake for one, but I feel like it's self-explanatory what he comes in and do for our team coming off the bench. I mean, he can be a starter anywhere. He can be a starter on this team. Man, he just comes in. He's always ready. Defense, offense, and behind the scenes too. He makes sure everybody's together. You know, he's our energy piece, our funny guy. But you know, just the way he carries himself, and he got that effect on the game.
Number 9 Texas defeated number 3 Kansas today here at the Moody Center. It was senior night, and Texas had plenty of seniors to celebrate, including Marcus Carr, Timmy Allen, Dylan Dessou, Sir'Jabari Rice. And Texas really was able to figure out what they wanted to do with those seniors throughout the entire night. Sir'Jabari Rice led all Texas scorers with 23, and Tyrese Hunter, who wasn't a senior but isn't a very experienced scorer, was able to have a good game as well, pushing Texas over the edge. Kansas struggled to get their offensive game going early on and couldn't really find it throughout the rest of the game. Jalen Wilson had 20-plus for Kansas, but other than that, a lot of their other scorers really struggled. Texas did a good job getting into them on the defensive end and was able to figure out how they wanted to defend the main scorers like Grady Dick, Jalen Smith throughout the entire night. So Texas was able to come out with a win, and it is going to be their first time being a 2 seed in the Big 12 tournament since 2011. This sets Texas up to go into the NCAA tournament with a lot of momentum depending on how they carry out in the Big 12 tournament. From the Moody Center and TSTV Sports, this is Justin Goosman.
I'd now like to welcome in our men's basketball analyst, Ryan Swantkowski. Thank you for joining us tonight, Ryan.
Thank you for having me, Joe. Great to be here. Love talking men's hoops with you, bro.
All right, let's dive right in. I want to start with this question here. The regular season has now wrapped up for the Longhorns, finishing second in the Big 12 with a 23-8 record overall. What are your thoughts on how their regular season went overall for this veteran team?
Yeah, no, absolutely, Joe. I think the end result is what a lot of Texas fans basically anticipated and then some more. Top 2 in the Big 12, especially this year, is a really big deal and a great accomplishment for this squad. I think a lot of people started to question Texas when Chris Beard got fired, but Rodney Terry has stepped in and done, in my personal opinion, a phenomenal job as the head coach. Texas beat 4 top 10 opponents this year and has the second most quad 1 wins in the entire nation, along with the longest losing streak of the season being just 2 games, and they were both against top 25 teams on the road. Some notable takeaways from the regular season is first that Marcus Carr is a pro-ready player now, averaging over 16 points per game. Tyrese Hunter was somewhat of a disappointment, but has recently picked up his game with a 20-point outing against Kansas. and that personally, the Horns have the ability to beat anybody in the league with their strong bench playing guys such as Serge Rice and Brock Cunningham, and their veteran leadership. I think to note moving forward, though, is that freshman Dylan Mitchell has seemed to be trending in the wrong direction. It'll be interesting to see how him and Tyrese Hunter play moving forward, heading further into March.
Yeah, you hate to see a young player like Dylan Mitchell struggling as we head towards tournament season. But secondly, I want to ask, in their last game of the regular season, Texas defeated Kansas handily by a score of 75-59. What was the main reason for the team's success and big-time win on Saturday?
Yeah, for sure, Joe. Well, Texas seemed to dominate this game from start to finish, and the biggest reason for that was the man I just mentioned in Tyrese Hunter himself. Hunter had one of his best games of the entire season with 20 points, 3 assists, and 2 boards, along with going 90% from the free throw line. To me, Hunter could be the secret weapon to the Longhorns tournament success. We also can't forget the potential Sixth Man of the Year and was named Big 12 Sixth Man of the Year, Serge Rice, who dropped a team-high 23 points off the bench and went 9 of 14 from the field. Along with these two guys playing well was an intensity Longhorn fans haven't seen in a week or two. The Hornets came ready to play and were throwing up lobs and throwing down dunks from the get-go. And it helps that they played at the Moody Center, as they have only lost one game at home this entire season. Lastly, the Longhorns held freshman phenom Grady Dick to just 6 points, which assisted in Texas maintaining that momentum essentially all game, Joe.
What a home field advantage that the Moody Center has provided this season. Lived up to the expectations.
Big time.
Finally, I want to talk about, you mentioned that the regular season is now over. So what does the road look like for Texas moving forward now?
Yeah, so now it's Big 12 tournament time. The Longhorns are number 2 seed in the Big 12 tournament, meaning they're already into the quarterfinals. They will face the winner of Oklahoma and Oklahoma State this coming Thursday, and if they win that game on Thursday, they will then face the winner of the Kansas State and TCU matchup in the semifinals. Then obviously if they win that game, they're in the championship and will face someone from the other side of the bracket. Who knows who that will be. It seems that at the moment, Texas is projected to be at number 2 seed as well, heading into the big NCAA March Madness tournament in just over a week or so. But that could definitely change based on how well they play and how far they go in the Big 12 tournament coming up. The road is not easy, but this Texas team has a chance to really make some noise moving forward in the rest of March, and it will be very exciting to watch, Joe.
Oh, we love March Madness.
Yeah, we do.
All right, Ryan, thank you for joining us once again, always. And for that analysis, as always, Ryan, when we come back to College Press Box, we're going to talk about Texas women's hoops after a statement performance to close the season. So don't go anywhere. College Press Box, we'll be right back. Welcome back into College Press Box. After an unsatisfying start to the 2022 campaign, Texas women's hoops have officially brought some hardware to the live musical capital of the world. Now we are lucky to be joined by our very own women's basketball analyst, TJ Krilowicz. TJ, how you doing?
Doing great. Always excited to be on Press Box.
That's awesome, man. I want to start with this question here. Now that the women's basketball team clinched a share of the Big 12 title with Oklahoma after beating the Kansas State Wildcats 80-52 on Saturday, what were the main takeaways for you in that game?
Well, they played great defense, which has been always a great strength for the team so far this season. They've been an amazing defensive team. They really set the tone in the first half. They only allowed 14 points in the first 20 minutes of the game, mostly because they were able to maintain Kansas State's leading scorer on the season and second leading scorer in the Big 12, Gabby Gregory, who scores 19 a game. She was held to just 3 points on Saturday with 32 minutes. They did a great job of forcing the ball out of her hands and making the role players make plays, which they struggled to do. The Longhorns forced 21 turnovers. Kansas State had more turnovers than made baskets. And I'm not too much of an expert, but if you hold your opponent to more turnovers than made baskets, you're probably going to win the game. So, amazing effort by the Longhorns. Let's not forget their offense, though. Shaylee Gonzalez stepped up and scored 21 points. Rory Harmon, always great with setting up teammates, had 12 assists. And how about Taylor Jones putting up 17 points coming off the bench? It was a great day for the Longhorns, just sheer domination on both the offensive side and defensive side. They hit on all cylinders.
Yeah, turnovers are a killer for anybody. Now with the Big 12 conference tournament starting up on Thursday, who would you say is the X factor on this Longhorn squad?
Yeah, there's a lot of players that I can pick from, but I'm going to go with the leading scorer, Shaylee Gonzalez. The team needs her to score. We know she's capable of that. The team starts to struggle offensively when Gonzalez isn't scoring. The team is 10-8 in games where Gonzalez scores 12 or less, but the team is 13-0 in games where she scores more than 12 points. And in those 13 games, the team has managed to win all of those games by at least 9 points. So the team isn't only winning these games when Gonzalez scores more than 12 points, they are outright dominating when she can get some shots in the basket. So that's why I'm going to put her as the X factor for this team's success in March and also in the tournament. And if she's making her shots and shooting regularly during the Big 12 tournament and the actual tournament, I believe this team can go a really long way.
Veteran leadership can go a long way, as always.
Absolutely.
Finally, TJ, what is something the team should focus on to ensure success in the Big 12 tournament?
I would say I think what strikes out to me the most is when you look at all the Big 12 stats, the three ball, the stats compared to Big 12 teams, Texas is dead last in the Big 12 when it comes to opponents' three-point field goal percentage. And even though Texas beat Oklahoma by 20 both times they played Oklahoma, Oklahoma's been really successful with the three this season. They shoot the most threes in the conference and have the second best percentage. If Texas doesn't fix their the perimeter defense, they can be in trouble, especially when they play a team like Oklahoma. It really is Texas's only weakness on defense. I mean, shout out to Rory Harmon, just won the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. They dominate in every other defensive statistic. So if they can fix this problem, it'll be extremely difficult to score on this team. You don't want your opponent to start getting hot from three if you're Texas. Texas is not a three-point team. They average the least amount of three-pointers a game in this conference. So I think if Texas can prevent any games from becoming a shootout, they should be in control.
All right, DFW's finest, TJ Krilowicz. Thank you for joining us, my friend.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
All right, when we come back to College Press Box, we're going to talk a little bit about the NCAA tournament and what to expect for seeding for Bracketology. All this and more on College Press Box. Welcome back to College Press Box. It is officially postseason tournament season, and you know what that means. Improbable upsets, Cinderella stories, buzzer beaters galore. That's what makes March Madness unique in the sports world. Here to bring us more information on where certain teams are projected for tournament season is our very own Robert Gonsoulin. Robert?
Thanks, Joe. Well, we're already 6 days into the month, and we're getting closer and closer to the most exciting time of the year, March Madness, where players make a name for themselves, upsets shine, and the hopes and dreams of having a perfect bracket shatter. It is very hard indeed to keep up with all programs in men's and women's Division I basketball, but don't worry, I'm here to catch you up to speed and tell you everything you need to know before you fill out your brackets. While upsets have undoubtedly occurred every single year, there are always a couple teams that are going to have a tough time beating that you need to know of. In the men's division is Houston, Alabama, and Kansas. With the best overall record in college basketball, Houston is bound for a tournament run. They lead all of college basketball with a plus 20.1 points differential. Marcus Sasser is the leader of the team. He averages 17.2 points per game and can shoot well beyond the arc. But even when Sasser isn't playing at his best, depth at the guard spot is not a problem for the Cougars. Leading the team in assists and steals, they have Jamal Sheed, a 6'1" junior out of Manor, Texas, who even hit the game winner versus Memphis yesterday in the final game of the season. They also rank second in points allowed, which helps prove why they're arguably the best team on both ends of the court. But even when Houston has been off and on all season, we can't disregard one of their only losses, the Alabama Crimson Tide. Now, Alabama has lost only to one unranked opponent this season, and that was to Oklahoma on the road. They lead all of college basketball at rebounding with 44.3 boards per game. They are stacked with forwards who can really get their jobs done. Noah Clowney leads the team in rebounding, averaging 8.2 per game, and Brandon Miller leads the team in points, averaging 19.6. If teams want to stop Bama early in the tournament, they'll have to really fight players like Clowney and Miller down low and limit second-chance opportunities for them. Regardless of their loss at A&M on Saturday, Nate Oates' Tide boasts an impressive resume this season with wins over Arkansas, Michigan State, and two number one ranked opponents, Houston, as we already know, and North Carolina. Proving to themselves that they can beat the best, Alabama is for sure a contender to take the automatic qualifying bid away from someone else in the SEC tournament who needs it more. But let's not forget about the classic blue blood, the Kansas Jayhawks. Led by Jalen Wilson and Grady Dick, this team is well coached by the legendary Bill Self. The Jayhawks boast 7 AP top 25 wins this season against teams like Duke, Baylor, and Texas. Playing in one of the toughest conferences in college basketball, they entered the Big 12 tournament with the 1 seed. Additionally, Wilson is averaging almost 20 points a game while also leading the team in rebounds. This also isn't their first rodeo. They are reigning national champions and have been a 1 seed in 4 out of the last 6 tournaments. Regardless of this stat, they are still a beatable team. They have lost to 6th ranked opponents this year, with 4 of them being teams from the Big 12. If they somehow fall early this week in their conference tournament, the momentum of this team could start slowing down. With that being said, the Jayhawks are a safe pick in the rounds of 64 and 32, but start thinking a little bit harder when you get to the Sweet 16. Now, for the women's bracket, our 3 tough-to-beat teams are South Carolina, Indiana, and the LSU Tigers. Starting off with the Gamecocks, they are a dominating force in all of college basketball. Undefeated at 32-0 and returning as the reigning champions, South Carolina leads all of college basketball in points differential, blocks, and are second in rebounding. Senior guard Zia Cook out of Toledo, Ohio, averages 15.3 points a game off of 26.5 minutes. She scored 24 points and had 5 rebounds while going 6 for 8 on free throws in the SEC Tournament Championship yesterday afternoon. The team also had faced tough competition throughout the season, to which they had obviously overcome. They beat number 2 Stanford at the beginning of the season, number 5 UConn in February, and number 3 LSU just a few weeks ago. Let's also keep in mind this team's defense. They rank 4th in the country in points allowed. That's only 51.1 points per game. If teams are looking to take down head coach Don Stanley's impressive squad, they're really going to have to find ways to score. Include South Carolina in your Final Four. Moving up towards the north is Indiana, one of the best shooting teams in the nation. The team ranks 2nd in field goal percentage with 49.8. Senior forward Mackenzie Holmes is one of the best shooters in the nation. She has a 68.8 field goal percentage and scores 22.3 points a game on average. Also, let's not forget she is the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year and a first-team player for the conference. In total, the amount of points Indiana has lost by in their 3 losses this season only amounts to 10, and only one of those was to an unranked opponent. Expect the Hoosiers to be playing late in March. Now, let's get down to Louisiana to talk about those LSU Tigers. They are ranked in the top 5 in many categories, but 2 of them that stand out to me the most are points scored and rebounding. The team averages 84.1 points and 47.2 rebounds per game. Angel Reese is by far the team's best player with 23.4 points per game, which is 5th in all of college basketball this year. She also is 2nd in rebounding with 15.5. LSU lost to both South Carolina by 24 points earlier this season, but with a player like Reese and having already played this tough team, they will be a top contender for the title in the women's bracket. And now, for my favorite part, I will briefly talk about 2 dark horse teams, Cinderella-esque, just a little bit better than the worst seeds in the tournament. But in the men's division, we got to keep a lookout for 23-ranked Kentucky. They have Oscar Tshiebwe, one of the best players in the entire nation. He's a John R. Wooden Award finalist who averages 16.4 points and 13.1 rebounds a game. Kentucky has 10 losses this season and will not likely be getting the automatic qualifier bid out of the SEC. Therefore, they're going to probably be receiving an at-large bid at a 7 or 8 seed. The Wildcats aren't the blue blood they're usually known to be this year, but just because of how dominant Tshiebwe is, don't be surprised to see them making it all the way to the Elite 8. And now, finally, for the women's bracket, give me 25th ranked Middle Tennessee out of the Conference USA. They are a likely 11 seed with an automatic qualifier bid from winning their conference tournament. They are on a current 7-game winning streak and have only lost 4 games this year, with one of them being at home. They are clearly the best team in the Conference USA, and I wouldn't be surprised if they had little to no trouble making it past the first 2 rounds of the tournament. Well, that wraps up everything I have in Bracketology for me tonight. Good luck with filling out your brackets and happy March. Let's send it back to Joseph at the desk.
All right, thank you for that analysis, Robert, as always. When we come back to College Press Box, we're going to talk a little bit about the Baseball World Cup being the return of the World Baseball Classic for the first time in 6 years. Who are the teams to look out for in this star-studded tournament? Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to College Press Box. It is now time to preview the return of a tournament that baseball fans like myself have sorely missed. For the first time since 2017, baseball's World Cup, the World Baseball Classic, returns to action. The newly expanded format, now consisting of 20 teams, will start with 4 different groups of pool play. Pool A, played in Taichung, Taiwan, involves Chinese Taipei, the Netherlands, Cuba, Italy, and Panama. Pool B in Tokyo will feature Japan, Korea, Australia, China, and the media darling Czech Republic. Phoenix will host Pool C with Team USA, Mexico, Colombia, Canada, and Great Britain. And finally, Miami will be the home for Pool D, Puerto Rico, Venezuela, the stacked Dominican Republic, Israel, and Nicaragua. The top 2 teams from each pool will advance to the single elimination tournament, and that is where the fun begins, my friends. So let's talk a little bit about the favorites. Right now, the overwhelming favorite, deservedly so, is the Dominican Republic. From top to bottom, this roster is completely loaded. Power bats like Manny Machado, Vlad Guerrero Jr., Rafael Devers, and the shuffling man himself, Juan Soto, are sure to leave numerous pitching staffs in shambles. Speaking of pitching, did I already mention that they probably have the best staff there too? Led by Marlins ace and NL Cy Young Award winner Sandy Alcantara, the DR also has Christian Javier and some of the MLB's best bullpen arms in Camilo Doval, Rafael Montero, and Diego Castillo. Please hear me when I say that this team is absolutely worth the hype and are to be feared. The DR's balance is better than it has ever been in the history of this tournament. Another favorite that should be taken seriously is the last champion of the WBC, the United States. A lot of new faces are on this U.S. team, but they still remain a favorite because of possibly the best lineup that they've had in the history of this short-lived tournament. Captained by 3-time MVP Mike Trout, the U.S. will carry last season's NL MVP Paul Goldschmidt, Mookie Betts, and Nolan Arenado, power bats like Pete Alonso and Kyle Schwarber, and consistent contact slashers like Jeff McNeil and Tim Anderson. There should be no difficulties with this stacked lineup, but a question arises on who will step up in a rotation that's not as flashy as, say, the DRs. With the brutal loss of Clayton Kershaw due to insurance policy, Team USA will be led by the ageless wonder Adam Wainwright, Lance Lynn, Nestor Cortez, and Merrill Kelly. I will say that I am excited for a nice bullpen led by Devin Williams, Adam Ottavino, and Ryan Presley, who can shut the door for Team USA in late-inning situations. Can Team USA defend their crown with increased competition in 2023? That's the question that I cannot wait to see answered. Thirdly, and quite possibly an underrated favorite, is Team Japan, led by possibly the game's greatest player, two-way star Shohei Ohtani. No matter what year it is, you can always count on Japanese baseball to show up to compete in the WBC. Ohtani, along with the 2-time WBC champions, will lead the charge and be joined by the Nippon League's home run champion, 22-year-old phenom Munetaka Murakami, and newly signed Red Sox outfielder Masataka Yoshida. Furthermore, the most interesting story of this team could be how their pitching fares. San Diego Padre and MLB veteran Yu Darvish returns to WBC action for the first time since Japan's 2009 win. Along with Ohtani is the 21-year-old phenom Roki Sasaki, who threw Japan's first perfect game in 28 years last season. Sasaki has potential to be the best pitcher to ever come from Japan, and with his 102-mile-per-hour fastball, he will surely take his talents to the MLB one day. Unfortunately, Japan will be down one of their key pieces in Chicago Cubs Seiya Suzuki, who was recently injured in spring training. Nevertheless, to reiterate, you can count on the Japanese to show up in the tournament, and they have reason to cause legitimate concern for any team. Finally, let's get some predictions going to see what this competition could look like. In these orders, I have the Netherlands and Cuba advancing in Pool A, Japan and Korea advancing in Pool B, the U.S. and Mexico advancing in Pool C, and then the DR and Puerto Rico conquering Pool D. Now, here's where it gets interesting. I have the Netherlands defeating Korea and Japan defeating Cuba in the quarterfinals. On the other side, I'm taking the U.S. against Puerto Rico in a rematch of the last WBC final. And then I'll take the DR against Mexico in a tough one. Now, the semifinals, I have the United States defeating the Dutch to advance to the finals. And then the DR defeating Japan in what I am sure is to be an absolute classic. So for the finals in Miami, Florida, with the whole baseball world watching in the U.S.'s backyard, I had the Dominican Republic, sadly winning their second World Baseball Classic title and their first since 2013. I cannot say enough about how this roster has been constructed, and to be honest, I don't know if the U.S. has enough quality starting pitching to defeat this roster. In closing, I cannot wait to see the return of this tournament in full swing, and it is bound to be the most talented we have ever seen in its limited history. This year's WBC will prove how vast the American pastime has grown globally. When we come back to College Press Box, we recap the last week in Texas sports. You will not want to miss it. Welcome back into College Press Box. Number 10 women's tennis defeated Rice 6-1 this past Saturday at the George R. Brown Tennis Center. Freshman Nicole Kieran dominated 6-1 in singles action, while Charlotte Shrivadipon and Sabina Zanilova dominated 6-2 in doubles. Texas women's tennis will return on Friday to open up conference play against Oklahoma. On Sunday, Texas baseball lost another heartbreaker, this time against Cal State Fullerton on the road. After a ninth-inning rally to send the game to extras, Fullerton's Angelo Alamon singled to left field to walk it off for the Titans. The Longhorns lose the series 1-2 and fall to 4-7 overall. Texas will return to the dish on Tuesday against Sam Houston to start a 14-game homestand. Texas softball, competing in the Longhorn Invitational, defeated Louisiana this past Friday night after 7 runs in the game's first 3 innings. The win marked the Longhorns' second win over the Raging Cajuns in the Invitational itself, and Texas is now 17-2-1 on the season and will travel to Arlington on Wednesday for its first true road game of the season. The number 8-1 Texas track and field program won 10 events during its outdoor home opener at the Longhorn Invitational. Sophomore Sam Hurley defended his Longhorn Invitational high jump title, entering the 7-foot clearance club, while Crystal Herpin won the women's shot put on her final throw, climbing to number 8 on the UT all-time performers list with a powerful throw of 15.9 meters. Now taking a look now at this week in Longhorn sports. On Tuesday, baseball will compete against Sam Houston, as said before, at 6:30 on the Longhorn Network. And then Wednesday, they'll compete against Mercer, 6:30 on the Longhorn Network as well. Men's basketball will compete against either OK State or OU at 6 p.m. Time to still be determined. And then on Friday, softball will compete in the Bevo Classic on Longhorn Network, while women's basketball will either compete against Texas Tech or Kansas State at 1:30 on ESPNU. And then also on Friday again, baseball will compete against Manhattan on 6:30 on Longhorn Network. Saturday, softball will compete once more in the Bevo Classic on Longhorn Network, while baseball will continue their series against Manhattan at 1 p.m. in the afternoon on Longhorn Network. Baseball will conclude that series against Manhattan at 12 p.m. on Longhorn Network on Sunday, while softball will also compete in the Bevo Classic once more on the Longhorn Network. And that'll wrap things up for this week's episode of College Press Box. Make sure to tune in to our other shows this week, including College Crossfire on Wednesday and Wanna Know Sports on Friday. Thank you to our analysts, everyone in Master Control, our executive producer Samantha Pearl, and everyone else at TSTV. I'm Joseph Duffey. Thank you for joining us. Have a good night.